So this is our panel for today. We've got four awesome individuals who've all been involved with our program in some way. And I'm just really grateful that they have some time with us this Friday on this day. So Cody Aldaz is a data scientist at Acelot, and he was an intern mentor for us. I think we were thinking maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Some of you were at our Boba Social yesterday, and Vivian, who was there, was worked with Cody. So he was involved with us back then. Amanda was also a mentor with us maybe 2 years ago, and then she supported our program as a program assistant this past summer. So welcome back to Amanda. Rosa is actually a mentor with us this summer, and Julio, who's in our internship cohort, is being mentored by her. And then Marissa is somebody who's really a special person to us. She's a Foothill alum. She worked with me for 2 years with this internship program 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember now. And now she's at UC Berkeley, and she's been a supporter. She's part of our SLI advisory board. So all these people are what I would say are just really dedicated to the program. So we're gonna do a panel with them. And really, that's just a discussion. We've got some questions designated, but these are all people who've got a lot to say, and I think we will have a really good discussion. And then we'll have time for you all to ask questions. So feel free to use emojis, make comments in the chat. If you have questions that come up, feel free to put questions in the chat too. And I'm just going to go ahead and spotlight our speakers so we can, if you are in the gallery view, you'll be able to just see the speakers and me. So, oh, sorry, not the gallery view. If you go to the speaker view in your Zoom, then you'll be able to see just us. Okay. So welcome to our guest speakers today. Just again, really grateful for your time. And why don't we go ahead and just start with first, just a basic background, your personal background. Maybe share, most of our students are first generation and or low income and are in community college, obviously. So if you have any of those identities that were part of your journey, but just first who you are and what you do, like where you're at and what your personal background is in a quick nutshell, if that's possible. So why don't we start with Amanda?
Hi, everybody. I also started at community college. I'm also a first gen, and my parents are immigrants from Mexico, so I'm first gen also in the US. And my background has had a lot of twists and turns, and I'll tell you more about it later, but I'm trained as a wet lab scientist, specifically in studying antibiotic resistance, so the bad bacteria. But I'll share more about it later.
And maybe you could just say quick, like what's your role right now and what institution you're with?
Yes, so part of the twists and turns, I'm now studying health disparities and STEM mentorship at SUNY Downstate Health and Sciences University.
Okay, great. Cody, if you can go next.
Hi, my name is Cody Aldaz. I'm a data scientist at Acelot. It's a startup in biotechnology. We're trying to develop treatments for neurodegenerative diseases. So yeah, I'm also a first generation college graduate and the first in my family to earn a PhD. I grew up in a low income single parent household, so I had a lot of struggles growing up. Things weren't always easy, but I had a lot of great mentors along the way who really encouraged me. So very fortunate for that. I'm happy to be part of this panel and to encourage the next generation of students.
Thanks, Cody. Marissa, if you could go next.
Hi, I'm Marissa, and I was also a Foothill College transfer student. And actually, when I was at Foothill, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I was really not into school. And it turns out that I had an undiagnosed learning disability, so I had ADHD. And through Foothill's guidance, I was actually diagnosed properly. And then I got an internship through a program much like this that was in engineering, and that made me realize that I loved engineering. So I switched from psychology to engineering and was finally able to study like the right way and focus. And so I then transferred to UC Berkeley and majored in mechanical engineering and material science, and then got a PhD in bioengineering. And I've worked in many different sectors, and now am the chief diversity officer for the College of Chemistry, the chief diversity officer for the College of Chemistry at UC Berkeley.
Great. And Rosa.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rosa, and I am currently a postdoc in the Department of Biology at Stanford. Before that, well, currently I'm a microbial ecologist, which was a new system for me, but I will tell you more about my academic journey maybe later. But I'm immigrant. I was born and raised in Peru. My grandparents raised me, and neither of them had college degrees, so that's one thing that they always encouraged me to study or like to pursue. And they also worked like very intense like jobs, and they didn't want that for me. So that's one source of inspiration, like why I am here. I was also low income, and then when I immigrated to the US, I knew that I wanted to pursue some sort of college, but I really didn't know that research was a possibility as a career until I transferred out of community college. And I'm looking forward to your questions.
Rosa, can you just tell them what a postdoc is? Because I know I didn't know that for a long time, and then finally I figured it out, but yeah.
Yeah, so a postdoctoral scholar is somebody who has already obtained a PhD that is going into continuing to do some research in order to gain more independence. Like your PhD, you're learning how to do research, but a postdoctoral scholar is assumed to have more independence over their own research.
Great. And I think, Marissa, did you do a postdoc also? Because I know Cody, Amanda, you both did postdocs, right?
Also did a postdoc. Yeah.
Okay, so that seems, is that kind of generally a path you take after your doctorate, your PhD is if you don't land a job right away, it's kind of like one thing you do to build your skills more, or
Not
is it?
necessarily if you don't
Okay.
get a job right away. It's more so if you want to pursue a career in research, or you want to develop a research expertise in a newer area that you want to then apply. Like say, you're doing a PhD in bioinformatics, and then you really want to get into data science, but at an upper level position where you're doing more sophisticated work, then a postdoc in an area of data science where you can display that you have the independent ability to do research in that field and actually make discovery in that field is, and kind of prove that out, then that would be an appropriate way to do it. It is generally used by people who want to take academic careers, who want to become professors. I don't know, my case was unusual in that what I was planning didn't quite work out, and this professor at Stanford was pursuing me. Different people have different reasons, but that's generally the path.
Yeah, and I know like Cody's example, I know you'll share a little bit more, didn't go the academic route, but used it for the reason that he needed to. So yeah, I think postdocs is something to start thinking about for people who are thinking of grad school, but that would be way far down the line. So in the vein of, we have all our students here. Some are getting ready to transfer this coming fall to great universities. Some are in their first year at Foothill. But it'd be great to hear, and this one, so we're not going to have everybody answer every single question, but for this one, it would be good to hear all of your academic journeys a little bit, just for those of you who went from community college, and I think all of you are first gen in some way, just like what it was in your academic journey that helped you kept going and figuring out what your path would be. Because I know in talking to students, they might have an idea of where they want to go, but don't know exactly what that means, or so I've often heard students have heard about grad school for the first time through this internship program. So, how did you make those decisions in your academic journey that led to where you are? So anybody want to go first? Cody, since you're off mute, why don't you go first?
All right. So I started my academic journey at the University of New Mexico, and I didn't really know anything about college. I just knew that I kind of wanted to go. A major turning point for me in my career was getting accepted into the Maximizing Access to Research Careers program. It's very similar to the Science Learning Institute that you're part of now. It's designed to support low-income and first-gen students and give them that research experience. That opportunity really opened so many doors, and it's where I got my first taste of what research is like. So, from there, I was able to you know, learn what is a grad program, right? Like I didn't even know that was the thing, right? And then apply, you know, and so I got into the University of Michigan, and you know that just kept on building, right? After that, I got awarded the Stanford Science Fellowship, and that's what brought me to the Bay Area, and now I'm working at a biotech. So that's how it works, right? You have to start somewhere, and I'm just so excited for everyone.
And would you say there was like, did you just kind of land into positions, or were there mentors that were a big part of that? I know you mentioned that earlier, but how did you kind of like navigate all of that? Because those are big decisions to have to make, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the most important, I think, was the Maximizing Access to Research Careers program, because, not only did it jumpstart the career, but, and teach me some skills, but the community, right? For someone like me, first gen, and not really fitting in, it helped me to see that I had a place in science too. So that made it feel accessible, and that was a huge deal.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Rosa, would you be willing to go next?
Oh, I was gonna share.
Yeah, Marissa, go
okay.
ahead. Yeah, you go.
So for me, I really, really tapped in right away into like the support programs and the affinity groups. So when I got into Berkeley, I chose to live in the transfer dorm. So that surrounds you with other transfer students. Then I immediately connected with the minority engineering program reached out to me, and I really leaned on them. Like I went to see that director often. And then she took me to my first HES meeting, which HES is like Berkeley's chapter of the Hispanic Engineers and Scientists, which is also called SHIP, which is very active at like San Jose State. So I know Daniel Ramos is a part of that. And through HES, I not only made a bunch of friends, like they became my friends for life. I actually still get together with them. But I found internships through them. I went to national conferences. I competed in national like science paper competitions and won money. And yeah, so they brought me both the internships, and then I went back to minority engineering program and was like, I don't really want to work in corporate. Like, what are my other options? And then they guided me and encouraged me to go to graduate school and told me what to do, like get research experience. This is how you get research experience. This is why you get research experience. Here are programs you can apply to. So really tapping into those resources and utilizing them was like key for me, and the student affinity groups. That's like where it makes your networking circle so much smaller, and they're really tapped in because then they have alumni who come back and want to give opportunities to new people in those groups. So yeah.
Lisa, can you tell them what a student affinity group is? Because I know not everybody knows what that is.
So like for me, it was Hispanic Engineers and Scientists. There's Society of Women Engineers. It's like student groups. It's basically another way of saying student groups that just come together because they have a common interest. So they have an affinity for something, so yeah, sorry, that's new lingo.
No,
It's basically student groups.
Realize until I hear a student be like, what does that mean? But yeah, I'll help to translate. Can you talk a little bit more about your journey too? Like deciding to go to grad school, because I know that was tough finishing grad school. And I know in talking to you, that journey wasn't always easy either. And like the role that mentors played along that too.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know that my journey is an ideal one. I decided to go to grad school because I just didn't know what else to do. Like I had an experience in corporate America that was thrilling in many ways, but in also, this was the early 2000s, and I worked at General Electric, and it was very much a white male structure. And some things happened to me during that summer that, despite me being extremely like a big, extremely standout, like the light was constantly being shown on the white males in my cohort, and I was being told by mentors of color, like, go find somewhere else. Like, you're not going to shine here, even though you're the best one in the group. And it was like really, and so there was those experiences. And it was also that I was shocked by the entry-level work that engineers were doing. I felt like at Berkeley, I was really being pushed to think deeply about things. And then in the industry, they were just kind of like copying and pasting engineering reports from one thing to the next. And it just wasn't challenging. I didn't feel challenged, and I didn't feel like I was learning to think so deeply, and then I was going to continue to be challenged in corporate. So then my mentors, the minority engineering program, told me, well, you know, your grades are pretty good. Like, you should think about going to grad school. And so I was like, sure, let me do that, you know, and my mentors, my research mentors did really believe in me. And then when I was in graduate school, you know, again, it was really rough. I was the only woman of color, the only minority woman of 125 grad students. And there was no affinity groups. There was no program, like a minority-based program or anything. And I really felt a lack of community. And so I went and joined the undergrad chapter of SHIP, like at that University of Washington, you know, and I connected with them, and then I started working with the National SHIP organization, and I actually built out what today is a whole grad school component of that conference. Like, I built out a whole grad school track to encourage students that went to that conference to also learn what grad school is about, how to go to grad school, and then have options that were beyond just going to corporate America. And I remember going to the board and saying, like, hey, we're sending our best Latino talent and we're basically selling them out to corporate America. Like, what about having tracks that encourage them to go further and deeper and like to become scientists and to become independent researchers and to contribute to the field of science and contribute to the field of engineering? And so that's why, and I worked to build out those tracks that are still a part of the conference today. And that gave me a sense of community, which really helped. And at the end of the day, when I felt in kind of my second or third year, I was really doubting if I wanted to keep going. I felt like I didn't want to be limited by any job that, like, I didn't want the lack of an advanced degree to be a limiting factor in any job that I would want to get. And sure enough, right out when I finished, the National Institute of Health had policy jobs, but you had to have a PhD in STEM. And now I'm doing work that I love. Like, I'm building out programs, and I'm working with the administration at UC Berkeley to build out programs so that all of our students have access to the AP classes that they need to get into Berkeley, or that they're getting the prep they need in the summer before, so that they're all at the same level, because, you know, the public schools in the country or in California are so different. So your access to education is so different that we get a cohort of freshmen that have such different preparation. And then some of them really don't do well, but it's not a function of them not being smart. It's a function of them not having the same preparation. So I'm getting to do all the work that I dream of, but the very first requirement for that job was a PhD in STEM. You know, so, and I also just kind of felt like walking through life as a Latina with like Dr. Yáñez is going to just open so many more doors than not. Things are changing today, so that's not necessarily the same, but as a woman of color, I just felt like I needed more tools in my toolbox, you know, and if I had the capability to finish, why not? I don't know that that's necessarily the best choice, but now for the work that I'm doing today, I'm so grateful that I finished that, because I get to do the work that I've always dreamed of wanting to do. And that degree was like the first thing that mattered. So for me, it ended up being the right path, but it was really rough and I doubted myself all the time. So finding community and finding mentors, and I think as everyone, you know, I don't want to keep talking because I know Amanda has incredible stories, and also Cody, and there's just a common theme of like, it does get hard. So you have to find like community and mentors that keep believing you. And at the end of the day, you also have to keep believing in yourself.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks. Amanda, you want to go next?
Yes, I really like looking back because it, you know, it helps me remember when I'm facing new challenges. But I was in community college and I worked to support myself, so I feel like I barely transferred, but I transferred to San Francisco State, and then I was working a lot, so I didn't really have time to make too many friends. But my roommate at the time was doing research, and so that's how I heard about it. And then I went in and I, you know, asked for a, you know, an opportunity, and I was very lucky that at San Francisco State that I had some really nice mentors that gave me an opportunity. And because I worked, I was able to do experiments at night. So I would go to class and go to work and then realize like, oh, okay, this is something I can do while I'm still doing my other responsibilities and I enjoy it. And so I did that for like the last 2 years of while I was there as a transfer student. And then I got a grant to do some research at UCSF the following summer. And so I went there and I thought, okay, like it's going to be fantastic and wonderful. And it was, but there was a situation where my mentor didn't really tell me how to run the PCR. I hadn't actually done it in a lab class before somehow. And so she just threw me into it and I had told her I didn't know how to do it, but she told me to figure it out and I had made a mistake. And I remember instead of them saying, okay, let's talk about it, they kicked me out.
Wow.
And I started to cry, and then they said you have to go sit in a closet or something because we don't want you to leave looking like you just cried because we don't want people to think we're mean. And I just remember thinking, okay, like they told me like they're like I'm sorry, but if you have any aspirations for science, like let us be the ones to tell you, do not pursue it like ever. And then I was really sad, and then I went back to my undergrad mentors and I said, hey, I just want to apologize for wasting your time because that I realized that you probably thought the same and you were just being really nice. And they're like, you messed up a PCR. Like, who cares? Like, people mess us up like all the time. Even like I would mess it up if I'm not paying attention. And like, did they even tell you like why you messed up, right? There's so many things that it could have been. So they're just like, what are you talking about? Like, let's just calm down and like if you want to do it, if you want to do research, why don't you do a master's? You know, that you're not jumping into a PhD or anything, but just do a master's. And at the time, I was working as a zebrafish husbandry person, so managing the animals that another lab at UCSF used for their experiments. And so I was able to ask that lab who was happy with my work. I said, hey, I know that I'm just like the zebrafish caretaker, but I want to do a master's at San Francisco State and I would love to do my research with you. And they're like, okay, well, we liked your work with taking care of our fish. So sure. I mean, as long as we don't have to pay you. And so I was like, okay, yeah, no, you don't have to pay me because it's part of my, program. And I think there is where I was like, okay, I want to see if I actually can do this stuff because I've already been told I can't. So what's the worst that can happen? And so I realized that I really liked research. And when I'm in a good environment where people are nice and say, hey, let me show you how to do it, then anything is possible. And so once I realized that that's part of the equation to be successful is that you just need to have a good group of people, then I think I got some wheels turning and realized, okay, I do want to keep going because not only is it fun, but I do feel like a sense of responsibility to represent my community because everywhere I go and research, there's none of us there. We're like the ones cleaning, but we're not the ones leading in the actual curriculum. So after that, I was like, okay, well, I did my master's. It was super fun. And I got to meet PhD students at UCSF as a master's student. And they gave me so much amazing advice. And so I thought, like, oh, I'm already set. I'm going to be good to go. I'm going to go to my PhD. I already got the advice. I already have my rotations. I already know all the lingo. And it was still hard because there's just no way to do a PhD where it's going to be easy. But what I'm saying is that even you should try to prepare as much as you can, but it's still going to be challenging. But I feel like for me, because I did my master's and I had messed up in that other lab, I feel like I had already some experience with things failing. And I think in research, it's really easy to take it personally and for people to misconstrue your failure too, right? Because I had gone to that lab and I said, hey, it didn't work out. And they're like, well, you're the problem, right? And so just kind of rephrasing like how does STEM move forward? Like, yeah, you mess up, 100 times and then it works the next time. And so after that, after PhD, I thought it was really hard, and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna switch fields. And so instead of studying pathogenic bacteria, I started studying commensal bacteria, so like the happy, friendly, supportive bacteria at Duke. But when I got to Duke, it was like a completely different, a new foreign environment. Even though I'm still in the US, they were still speaking the language of science. Um, and I was given a project that other people hadn't been successful in. But there were also some moments of hazing, right? So hazing is where people want to make you do really impossible tasks to kind of like embarrass you. And I realized, okay, this is thinking back like, oh, I was successful in my master's because I had a nice environment. Maybe it's going to be challenging here. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to try it. And I got the project to work, right? So I got it to work, and then people were like, "Oh, that's not fair. You're not allowed to get it to work." It was just a very psychologically challenging place, and I realized, again, like I need to switch gears again, and again, all of this trajectory had already set me up to say, "Okay, I'm just gonna submit my work," and it was really, really good work because they used it for a publication. And then I said, okay, I want to expand my skill set. So what's something I hadn't done yet? And I'm like, at this point, I've done new things a lot. And so I said, okay, well, I want to study how STEM mentorship is so crucial to success, right? Because there's got to be a science to it. And so that's kind of what I ended up doing, was switching gears, and I do remote work. So I do like qualitative work. So writing surveys and making sure they're not leading with the answers that I want to get, right? And so you still crunch data and work with numbers, but it's like not what I would have, if you would have told me a year ago that this is what I would be doing now, I would have said, there's no way. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I would not do that. But, just made the shift.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned earlier like how circuitous it is. I think probably, I don't know if all of you could maybe say that is, and I definitely feel that way for me. I think never is a career path straightforward. Things happen, you just can't predict, and 3 years in the future, you can't ever predict. 1 year in the future, you can't really predict. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Rosa, do you want to share what your academic path has been?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, I'm an immigrant. So I came to the US a few years after I had already completed high school in Peru. So when I got here, I knew that I wanted to pursue get a degree in biology, but I wasn't sure how to go about it. And I already had family members that were here that suggested going to community college is a good way to start your higher education. So I did that. I went to Victor Valley College in Southern California. And I also did a part-time job at an optometry office to be able to afford going to school. And so I knew that I wanted a degree in biology, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, or like that research was a possibility. Like at community college, I did have a few professors that had a master's degree or that had a PhD degree, and I wasn't sure what that was like or how to even got one. And then I transferred to UC Riverside, which like I transferred there for family reasons. I needed to stay in that general area, like the high desert / like San Bernardino, Riverside area. So UC Riverside was like basically my only option at a UC. And they have a really, really supportive transfer community. So like to echo like what everybody has said already, like finding these affinity groups and like these programs that help people that have the same background as you was incredibly important in like why I am here right now. So UC Riverside had this, and still has it. They have a program called Summer Bridge to Research. So they contact everybody who is transferring in, and they pay you to do research the summer before you actually start classes. So I did that, and obviously you get paid, so you don't need to get a job. Like your job is to do research basically. So I ended up in an ecology lab that used math and protists, like that you count under the microscope to look to study ecology. That for me, just like it didn't quite make sense, like how the connection between math and ecology worked. But then one of the grad students in that lab that summer had his dissertation defense, which is like basically the step that you take when you're finishing up your 5 years of your projects. you're like doing this final presentation of your work. And somehow in that moment, it kind of clicked for me that I like the field and that maybe I want to do research because no day is like the other. Like every day there's something new to learn. And my project during that summer was I spent the whole summer counting cells under the microscope to be able to develop a new way to like quantify them using like staining. And it turns out that it didn't work out. I have to go in front at the end at the final symposium. I had to go in front of everybody and say, hey, I tried this the whole summer and it didn't work. Now we know, because now we know it doesn't work. So that was still a good thing. But it taught me to be okay with that uncertainty and like with the fact that your experiments not always going to work, like things are not always going to work your way. But anyways, like I stayed at UC Riverside for 2.5 more years in the same lab. Like my professor connected me with other programs at UC Riverside that like CAMP, that stands for California Alliance for Minority Participation, and UC Leads. And those programs pay students to do research throughout the year. So they pay you a stipend to do a certain amount of research during the quarters. And UC Leads is an REU that has 2 years. So the first year I spent the summer at UC Riverside doing research, and the second summer I could go to any other UC to as long as I found a PI. So my professor connected me with a professor at UCLA that was doing research in insects, because I also liked insects. I minored in entomology. So I went the summer before applying to grad school. I spent at UCLA with a professor that was really nice. I worked with one of the postdocs there, and I did a project on parasitoid host dynamics, like a parasitoid wasp that attacks agricultural pests. And then also my undergrad PI paid for me to go to this big conference in our field that is the Ecological Society of America meeting. And over there, because I was presenting a poster, I had I had my business card attached to it. And I was like, I'm looking for PIs for grad school, because I was planning on applying to grad school. And I met a few people, including some Stanford professor that I went to their talk, and I talked to them, and I applied, and I was telling them that I wanted to apply to their lab for grad school. Anyway, it's like grad school applications came in, and I didn't get into Stanford with a professor that I wanted to work with. But he was really nice about it. Like, he sent me an email saying, hey, just because you didn't get into Stanford doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good scientist. So that message kind of stayed with me, which will come back later. So I went to UCLA for my PhD with the professor that I worked with that past summer. So I'm just trying to make the point that all these connections that you make throughout your career are very important. And I am so thankful that my PI at undergrad kind of like believed in me in the first place, and then made all these connections for me. And during my PhD, even my undergrad PI was member of my committee. So the group of professors that are the ones that are looking at your work and deciding if you actually are ready or like are gonna get this PhD, basically the people that judge your work. So he was part of my committee because I feel like I needed somebody to support me, like be supportive, like knew me, since I was a baby scientist, what I call myself. So yeah, he was there. And my PhD journey, I feel like, as other people have mentioned, PhD are already hard to obtain with, like, you spend all these 5 years or more like doing research, dealing with the uncertainties of doing research that might or might not go well. But there are other things that are unnecessarily making this process hard, which can be like your lab culture or your department culture. In my case, it was the department culture that made it particularly challenging, which again, it was nice to have my undergrad PI be in my committee. But anyways, I did my PhD at UCLA, completed out at the Ecology and Evolutionary Biology department. And then when it was time to decide what to do next, I do want to be in academia. I do want to be a professor. And the main reason for that is that I know that I was lucky to have a PI that believed in me and supported me. But I feel like even in my classes, even at UC Riverside, which is a very like, it's a Hispanic serving institution, like there weren't that many professors in the sciences that looked like me. So I was like, well, now I have had the privilege of earning a PhD. I have the privilege of doing all this because people believed in me. So what am I going to do? Am I going to be a gatekeeper, or am I going to open doors for other people? So that's why I want to stay in academia and I want to be a professor. So in order to do that, I decided to look for postdocs. And because of the bad experiences that I had during grad school, I decided to apply to postdocs with people that I knew that care, that are great scientists, but most importantly for me, that are good people. And this is when this PI professor from Stanford comes back in. So I remember that interaction, like that stood with me, like saying, like, because you didn't get into Stanford doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good scientist. So I reached out to him again, and I emailed him, hey, I met you 6 years ago at this conference. Like, do you remember me? I'm about to complete my PhD and I want to pursue a postdoc. Like, would you be interested in writing a grant together? So we met on Zoom, we were connected, and I submitted the NSF postdoctoral fellowship in biology, and I got it. So that worked out. So like, again, I went like full circle into like, I didn't get to Stanford for my PhD. I didn't get to work with this professor that I really wanted to work with, but now I am. So my PhD was mostly working on insects, but because and the responses to climate change, how temperature affects insect population dynamics. But because I wanted to do more than study insect populations, I wanted to study many species at the same time. Now I'm doing similar work with microbial communities. So that was also a change in the fields for me. So when I started in this lab about close to 2 years ago, I didn't know microbiology. I probably took a class. Yeah, I took a class in community college, but I hadn't done any microbiology since then. So I had to learn again from everybody in the lab. Like, this is how you work with microbes. This is how you use everything for the microbes. So again, like I'm using this postdoc as an opportunity to expand the type of work that I do. So now I work with insects, and now I know microbial techniques. And then hopefully that is already giving me some ideas for the work that I want to develop when I apply to faculty positions.
Cool. I hope everybody's picking up. I mean, there's definitely common themes that I'm hearing among all of our panelists. And a couple of things that I heard is the importance of these programs. And Cody and Rosa, and I think even Amanda, you all alluded to some. So if any of them are still around, if you could put them in the chat, like UC Leads, I did find that, Rosa, and then Cody, I know you mentioned one. So if you all find any of those resources and could put those in the chat, I put SHIP in there, Marissa, but if there's any others you can put that you refer to. Another I've heard a couple of you refer to was going to conferences. And I know as community college students, you don't often get those opportunities, but some of you are in this MESA program that we have, and we're actually taking students to some of these conferences this coming year. So if you're part of programs and once you transfer, get involved with some of these clubs because they take students to conferences, and getting out there is such an amazing opportunity for networking that you would never really think about because it's like going to an event. And then definitely also the common thing of there's the good experiences and then there's the bad experiences. And what do you do with those bad experiences? Whether it's like failure at a PCR working or bad work environments or bad teams, and how do you turn those negatives into opportunities for advancement or to like propel you or to motivate you and not give up. So love hearing all of your all stories. Maybe we can just do one more question because I know, as Marissa said, I'm always overly ambitious with how much I want people to do. But then also, if you're all starting to have some questions, go ahead and just put stuff in the chat because I want to get a gauge of how many questions all of you all have because I have way more. But one question I do have, because I don't know how much the students, you all have been paying attention to the news. I mean, there's so much news going on, but regarding like STEM especially, and how there have been funding cuts to the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, all these federal funding streams that were funding basic research, like university research, research programs, diversity programs, all of that. And would love to hear if any of you are seeing, like, what are the impacts you all have seen, whether in academia or Cody being in industry? Because I don't know about the students, but I'm worried for you all because I don't know what the future of STEM looks like once you graduate and who knows who's going to be in the administration at that point. But like, there have been changes made that are just affecting the entire landscape of STEM and what's that even going to look like? And of course we can't predict, but if you all are hearing conversations about what's in the future, what kind of advice do you have for students who are thinking about research or industry, and how do you make those decisions? So whatever comes to mind for anybody from what you all are experiencing would be great to hear.
I just wanted to say one thing here, or a couple things here. So kind of tying into the last question that Amanda and Marissa and Rosa were answering. One of the most important things that my PhD advisor taught me is that, you know, the PhD isn't just about getting results or finishing dissertation. It's about becoming an independent thinker. So, you know, you've probably heard from, you know, all of us could tell you how much your research is about failure, right? You're going to fail a lot. And that's just part of the research process. So you have to deal with that. And that's not the final results you're getting at the end of the day isn't the end product. It's you becoming an independent thinker. And then about the industry landscape, and also artificial intelligence. You know, my advice is, you know, I think that AI is a total game changer. I use it a lot in my work now. And I think it's going to be a wonderful learning opportunity for younger students too. You know, I can't recommend it enough. It's going to be able to teach you so much in an accelerated time frame. You're going to be able to you know, get better results, and at the end of the day, that's going to be helpful for everybody. I don't think that it's going to take science jobs. I think that it's going to empower scientists. So it's a great time to go into science, from my perspective. So the reason I think that is because, you know, the AI is just assisting you. You're going to have to still get in the lab, do the experiments. It takes so much to do the science. So I think it's a great opportunity for science. That's all I have to say about that.
We talked about last week, Cody, because we talked a little bit about AI and STEM right now, and how at least this quote that I keep hearing from people is it's not necessarily AI that's going to take your job. It's the person who knows how to use AI that's going to take your job. So the importance of knowing how to use the tool.
So the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, he said that if he was 20 years younger or something, that he would go into science rather than computer science. So like physical science, like biology, chemistry. So if he's saying that, I think that's a good sign for you guys to do it.
Thanks. Other thoughts? Marissa, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we are seeing the impact. A lot of people have lost grants or had grants put on hold. And particularly, like, for example, we didn't apply to the NSF-RU program this year because the guidelines are so uncertain that we're not even sure. Like, we want some more clarity. And in fact, the program officer, who I have a strong relationship with, couldn't meet with me to give me any kind of advisement because they don't know what's going on, you know? And there are a lot of programs that have been cut, but then suddenly funding gets reinstated, you know? So, like, for example, Daniel got denied for an NSF GRFP, which is called a Graduate Research Fellowship, and then actually got it like 2 months later, and then, you know, was accepted to Stanford with that fellowship because the NSF decided that they were able to fund an extra 500 positions. So it is a very turbulent time, and it's going to continue to be a turbulent time with funding and cuts to science and cuts to research opportunities particularly. So, for example, all of those links that I'm putting in the chat, are research programs that are funded largely by the National Science Foundation. And if they're going to get a 23% cut to their budget, which is down from 50-something% that was proposed, and hopefully it goes down even more than that, like the Senate, I think, is the one that's really pushing back. Then some of those programs are going to be affected. So it is a tough time, but I have been alive long enough to know now that like society goes in waves. And, we're seeing now that a lot of what's going on is a huge response to like the huge push in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter movement, and just the frustration by the other side during that time that they felt like everything was going to people of color and minority programs and like all of that stuff, And so, there was millions and millions of dollars of funding going that way, and now it's pushing back. Eventually, it will go back the other way. And so I just think that like if we, a decade ago, I started a nonprofit to get more people into computer science. And it looked like you had to have a computer science degree and had to know how to code for the future. Now they're saying that computer science degrees are actually not the thing. We're having a decline at Berkeley of people applying to computer science degrees, like by huge percentages. And they're saying that entry-level jobs are going to be replaced by AI, and they're looking a lot less for entry-level coding people. And so I'm like, I'm so glad that I didn't continue to push in that direction, and that I refocused on just empowering students in STEM in general. Because like Cody said, science and engineering is never going to go away. Like it is the advancement of science and engineering technology that moves society forward all through all history of time, since like pre-BC areas. It's the advancement of technology that's moved society forward, And so we're going to need to continue to do that. So I think that this is just the time that like you can't take what's happening right now and think that's going to be for all of the future. I've seen so many major shifts going on that I'm so glad I didn't listen to my mom back in the day that was like, study computer science, that's what you need for a job in the future, because I didn't like it. And then now it looks like a lot of that is being phased out. And so I think this is like pursuing what you're passionate about, pursuing what you feel that is your calling. If you have a calling to do science research, biology, or chemical or education research, or whatever it is, like there's always going to be a need for that. And however society shifts, you're always going to be the one with the expertise and the passion and the purpose to carry that forward. Like we can't allow what's going on in society to sway what it is that we decide to study, because that shifts on a year-to-year basis. So I think, yes, it's a rough time. So we need to just come together. Like at Berkeley, it's been a rough year for me. My mental health has taken a hit. Like I'm a chief diversity officer. Suddenly the world hates diversity, and it's just like, it blows my mind, but it's been rough. But it's like, we need to just come together and keep moving forward, because at the end of the day, when all of these things change, we're still going to be there, And so I just think we have to start to kind of like let the noise fade out, ride the wave, and have faith that it is going to turn in the other direction at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Amanda, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at this point, I have definitely mentored a lot of students. And again, kind of to echo what everyone is saying, if you're going into something because you think it's gonna pay you well, while there is some consideration, especially us from like first gen, low, income backgrounds, yes, we want there to be some money, of course. But if that's like your only motivator, it's gonna be a bad time for you, and everyone is gonna be able to tell. So I would say that it's still a good time to go into science if you're honest with yourself, if you're curious, because if you're curious and you're like, for me, I want to know so many things. So I'm always like mentally stimulated by all these inquiries and find meaning in it. Like that is a lot of support, right? And I would say like also reading people that just use AI and don't have like, don't use it as a tool, who use it as a crutch, that also is very clear, right? And so you should learn how to use AI to supplement your work because it is a tool, right? At the end of the day, it's a tool, like Cody's been saying, it's not going to replace us. It's the way you think about it. It's the way that you can leverage it to kind of put like that little cherry on top as you bake your own cake, right? And take that ownership. And I do think it is going to get more competitive though, and to stand out, show up on time, have good manners, just be, kind to everybody, and do the work, right? Like put in that time, put in the effort, be like, yeah, I could type into Chat GPT. Tell me, like what's the latest on the microbial family that's related to C. diff, sepsis. I could do that, but I could also just start reading like, oh, I'm curious about, this lab. I know that this PI is really cool, and I'm just gonna start reading their papers and let it like send me on a trail somewhere, right? Um, I don't know if that's like the best example, but what I'm trying to convey is just to really think about your motivations and say and keep them close to you and say, this is why I'm doing it. This is what's going to get me there. And also learn to write, right? Because writing for grants, that's how you get funded, right? That's how you find fellowships. And writing is really hard. And if you use ChatGPT too much, it will not allow you to be successful because you won't be learning. So I think that's just my opinion on that.
Definitely. Maybe we can open up to see if there's student questions, and because we have about five-ish more minutes, we could go probably another 8. Anyone have any questions? Either put in the chat or feel free to come off. Yeah, thanks, Tivian. So in the face of personal hardships and moments of discouragement, how do you maintain resilience and continue to thrive academically? Yeah, maybe we can just take like one answer for the questions until we can see. But yeah, anybody want to answer that one?
I can answer.
Go ahead, Rosa.
Yeah, so I think like definitely like doing a PhD, it feels more like a marathon rather than a sprint. And you constantly have to get motivation out of yourself. Like your professor is not going to give you motivation. Your department is not going to give you motivation. It has to come from within. So I think it is important to have work-life balance, or at least a support network of people who are there for you. In my case, it was my friends from undergrad. Like we were all like part of all these like transfer programs. So like I stayed connected with them. So I would hang out with them or find hobbies that are going to distract you from other things. Like sure, the science can wait a little. Your experiment didn't work today, but today just take care of yourself in order to have that energy to go back to it. So in my case, I do a lot of birding. So during grad school, I was
Say
president of
birding,
the,
Rosa?
yeah,
Birding?
like looking for
go, okay,
birds.
bird
Yeah.
watching and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
yeah. So I was president of the Brewing Birding Club, and I got to know so many cool people through that. And it was definitely like the group of people that took like helped me through my PhD. Even if they didn't know about it, they made it into my acknowledgments of my dissertation. But it was just such an important part of my life on campus that that made the whole experience a lot better.
Maybe we can go on unless anybody's burning to answer that one. So Laura wrote, it's inspiring to hear your story since being immigrants gives us a condition. How did you all face financial challenges that might happen along the way? Yeah, definitely heard like Amanda was working a job while in those classes and researching at night. But yeah, any thoughts on that?
I also did like tutoring, and even when I was finishing my PhD, I was working with Sophia. So I think aligning, finding jobs where you are learning too, also can be helpful. And also honestly finding jobs at the front desk, like at a hotel or a gym, was our yoga studio for me was really helpful because there's moments when you're checking people in and doing some work, but there's downtime, and finding a boss that's like, okay, well, if you cleaned everything and organized everything, now I can just sit there and read. So for me, front desk jobs like saved my life.
I know one thing we also recommend to students is, and I'm sure people have heard it, but don't necessarily do it, is apply for scholarships. And at Foothill, at least there are like close to maybe 100, maybe I'm overstating, scholarships for Foothill students specifically. And you just have to apply for them. I know there are some students on this call who applied to a bunch and then got a lot of money out of that. So yeah, Laura, I think it's a real issue when you're low income and you're doing school and you have got a job, but scholarships are there and you just have to make the time for it. It's not that easy, but Foothill has those opportunities, and we'll definitely share those once the school year starts. But finding those sources of quote unquote free money in addition to the job that you might have on the side. Since any other questions from the students? I know Miriam had the question about advice on transfer applications, definitely getting help from the resources that exist here. We have a transfer center here too. But maybe we can just wrap up with one final word of advice from each of you for our students who are at various points in their journey. They're all in this internship. We've talked about networking and how, especially nowadays, because we were talking about AI last week, how AI is allowing people to churn out tons of resumes and cover letters. So employers are seeing way more of those. And there was a quote from some hiring manager that said, it's literally even more important now to get a personal referral because I'm getting so many more applications. So the importance of networking with anyone. It doesn't have to be your mentor only. It could be your fellow interns. So anyways, wrapping up with one final word of advice, whether it's networking or not related, it's okay. Marissa, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a word of advice. I'm going to give a little blurb. Like, one, know what it is that you want to do moving forward, and then speak it out to the world. Like, I got 3 jobs in a row because one, I was going hiking with a friend and I had been running my nonprofit, and I said, maybe I should just go work in tech. And she's like, oh, I have a friend who's looking for a position that has to do with Latin America at Facebook. Let me connect the 2 of you. That led to a job, you know? When Amanda was finishing her PhD and she was kind of like not sure what she wanted to do, she reached out and asked if we could connect. And I was like, don't give up. I see telling you, keep going, find a mentor who will believe in you, look for Latinos in academia, you know? And she did, and she found a Latino at Duke. And the next thing I know, she's heading to Duke. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I thought you were like done with this journey, you know? So you have to like keep speaking out, speaking to people. Like, don't hold it in what you want to do, and don't hold in like your self-doubt. Like you just have to manifest it, because networking goes such a long way. Almost every job I've ever had, I got through having conversations with people that I know. And so it's really important to just keep talking and keep sharing. I saw a post on LinkedIn where a girl she got the NSF GRFP late, but she had not been admitted to any program. So she posted and she got like over 24 offers from that LinkedIn post by faculty who were like, you know, I don't know if you guys all saw that too, but like from faculty who were like, oh, come talk to me, come talk to me. Even some of our former mentors who are now faculty, Sophia, were writing on that post. And then she had 5 days to find a position, and she got a position by speaking out to LinkedIn, the conundrum she was in. Because had she not have an offer from somewhere, she would not have been able to accept the NSF fellowship for graduate school, which is 3 years of funding for graduate school. So she posted it on LinkedIn, you know, and everybody came out of the woodwork, you know, and faculty that wanted to work with her came out of the woodwork. So that's like another way of speaking things out into existence. But just don't hold things in, and the universe grabs your hand when you reach it out, you know? And so I think that's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely learned from you the power of storytelling, Marisa. Like, you tell your story, and the more you tell it, you manifest your reality, definitely. Cody, you want to go next to share any advice or final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo some similar things as that, you know, be a little crazy, you know, take chances, don't be afraid to fail, you know, send that cold email, or, you know, reach out to someone. It might not work every time, but that's okay. All it takes is one.
Definitely. Amanda?
Yeah, I would say don't let anybody define you. If someone tells you to quit or that you're terrible, they only have a small amount of data on you. Think of it logically. Well, how much data did they saw me on my worst day, or they saw me during my worst month, but they don't even know what I've already worked at. They don't know what I overcame. They don't know that I learned how to replace the broken glass on my car because it kept getting broken into. That is the type of energy you want to take with you. Like, okay, fine. You don't want me here. I'm gonna go find my place, right? Don't let somebody determine that for you.
Yeah. And Rosa?
I kind of had like 3 things to say.
Go ahead, go.
If
Marissa
there's-
did too, so it's okay.
So the first one is that use this opportunity, this internship that you have to the best, like to get what you want. If you get out of it that you don't like doing research, that's perfectly fine. In my book, then you know that what you want to do. But also use it, like the second thing is like networking is so important. Like it's so weird how it is that everybody in your field knows each other and you never know like who is looking for work and who has opportunities and who can connect you. So make the most of it. Like just meet people, talk to them, and just keep in touch with them. And then the third part is like, don't let you hold yourself back. Like, it's not, so many times I have thought to myself, I don't want to apply to this thing because I'm not qualified enough. I'm not good enough. Like, I'm just going to apply. Like, I'm not even going to apply because I'm not going to get it. And I had people encourage me, like, the worst they can say is no. Like, let them say no. So just
I say that all the
do
time.
it. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to interrupt. Were you going to finish something? Yeah, don't let
no.
anybody say no. I mean, let
Yeah.
them say no, not yourself. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead